Good afternoon. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to the weekly BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. Today, we talk to somebody I've known for more than 4 decades, somebody who's been a civil servant, quit the civil services to be in the private sector, and now has started a school a couple of years back because he believes education should be of a certain kind. So let me welcome Mr. Pankaj Sudan, who's the founder of the Plenum School, today to the BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. Along with me is my editorial colleague, Mukherjee. Let me start by asking Mr. Sudan. Mr. Sudan, how have been the last 18 months for you, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, first and foremost, Annurag and the entire Businessworld team, thank you so much for having me. I have seen a couple of your interviews done on BW, Wednesday Wisdom. Of course, I believe as of now, me and the plenum are not there as yet, but thank you so much for having me. I hope to do justice. Now to the question of last 18 months, they were fun, they were challenging, and they tested every single assumption that any business, again my own journey and the Plenum School, every business has suffered untold challenges. We all were faced with unique challenges which we now never see and now never even imagined. So, but yeah, the good thing was, on the other hand, we had a few students. We had 24 odd students in the beginning of when we began the first lockdown on 20th of March last year. Today we have around 40. So not one single parent withdrew from our school. Plus we added more children. It's open to question whether we could have added more because of the lockdown and forced shutdowns of schools by the government. But frankly, net if I have to see, we are in a much stronger position today. So last 18 months, on the one hand, were a huge challenge. Every single day was a time of uncertainty. But it is also true that we came out with flying colors, and I feel very confident of the planning journey.
It was a mixed bag. There were lots of challenges, there was loss of lives and livelihood, but it taught us a lot, and I think we have to take the positive lessons. Let me ask you, a lot has changed since then. What has changed for good and what has changed for bad? What is permanent change and what, in your view, is a temporary change and we'll be back to our old way when we have a choice?
One is the entire ecosystem. The things on health, that's changed, I guess, permanently. I used to laugh when I saw people from, let's say, Japan walking around with masks on. So today, when I see everybody in every part of the country, people walking with masks or wearing masks, that's slightly changed, permanently, that people can take care of cleanliness and health. Even in our own school, how we perceive how cleanliness should be, what our children should do, what teachers should do, what parents, visitors should do. So we've changed that. That is somewhat of a permanent change. Now, temporary hiccups on one part were, as a school, our commodity is, or our product is the student. A parent, many parents, especially those who were young entrepreneurs, they suffered irreversible damage to their businesses, and payment of fees became a challenge for them. There were a lot of parents I know who lost their jobs. Now, it was so painful that on the one part they've lost their jobs, and on the other part we also have to run a school. How do you ask for fees? So that was a temporary challenge, I think, a huge challenge. But I believe this will come back to normal as the economy revives. It was extremely distressing to see this thing. Probably a counterintuitive change that I saw, at least I can talk from the Plenum School standpoint, was, on the one hand, parents got very scared. People were generally scared as to what Corona would do, especially the second wave, when it caused major destruction of life. We saw everybody in every locality, every home suffer. So parents took two different options. One, they got scared and they said, we can't send children to a boarding school because we run a boarding school. and parents wanted their children to be near them. But another counterintuitive thing was people realized that most of COVID, most of pollution happens in the cities. So if your child is here in Delhi, if you don't know the first wave, 2 months, 16 days, 20 days, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, how long will your school close? When a parent knew that she or he did not know, and it is unfair to keep children at home, locked up in a small flat. At that point in time, parents also started considering a boarding school because we are slightly far removed and slightly we are cleaner. So these two counterintuitive. So this will come back to normal again. So to answer your question, what changed permanently was the way Indians in particular across the country, we started approaching issues regarding health, issues regarding cleanliness. So, but what has changed temporarily was this disruption caused in economy, forcing parents slight difficulties in payment of fees, which probably with economy reviving will come back to normal.
And Pankaj, you and me went to the same convent school, and I must say that you were senior to me by 5 batches. I don't know who looks older, who has more hair, but I'll leave it to the readers and viewers' imagination. But Pankaj is 5 years senior to me from the same convent school. We grew up in Old Gurgaon. And the reason I'm saying this, I said right up front that Pankaj's journey, he was outstanding in the class. Then he went to a boarding school. He went to Rice School. You went to a Rice School. Then you went to an engineering school. Then he became a Dhanix officer. He was he was a civil servant. He was a bureaucrat. Then he joined GE in the private sector. And then he quit all that to set up the Plenum School. He has his 2 children doing well. He has a wife who's a bureaucrat in the Indian Administrative Service. And the reason I'm taking you through this journey is that your parents and my parents have been academicians. You and me were lucky to get good education. We're lucky to get our parents' time and attention. Education has changed a lot. Education is about brand names. And I keep saying the best education and the best school is home. Now, coming to what made you set up the Plenum School? How is the Plenum School differentiated? Why this mission in life?
Yeah. So, as you rightly point out, we are both children of teachers. Annurag, your parents are also teachers. My parents are also teachers. Now, this journey goes back to 1986. I think in 1986 was the first time I started thinking of setting up a school. So, the issue was, I think teachers in Haryana government were protesting this. And there was a notional arrest of teachers. They were taken in a bus and they were released after some. So my parents told me when I was visiting back, I was doing my engineering. Yeah? And when I came back home, my parents told me in very dramatic terms that, oh my God, you are arrested and this and that. And I started thinking to myself, what the hell, what is this country all about? Why is it that teachers are never treated fairly? If you are a teacher, you would want, if you're a halwai, you want your child to be a halwai. You're a lawyer, children follow their father's way. You're a doctor, definitely become a doctor. Businessmen, families, they put their children into their own businesses. But a teacher never ever wishes that my child should be a teacher. It set me thinking. Now, if teachers are the real role models, if they are the institution builders, if they are the country builders, then the economy was not showing it. The data doesn't show it. I'm yet to come across a teacher who tells his children or her children that you grow up and be a teacher. It's a great job. It's a wonderful profession. But they don't do it. And there are valid reasons. They're not stupid. It's just valid reasons. Teachers don't get the respect they deserve. They don't get the money they deserve. So I started, but there is also a logic that why should you pay if they don't deserve? I saw a lot of people get into teaching just because they are peers. That is not a valid reason. This teacher, this guru, this master will not shape life. He or she will not change it. He will just do a job, and for that job, he or she gets paid whatever he or she gets paid. So it's exactly thinking that there has to be a better way. But the better way is better people getting into everything. But like any decent, stupid fearful middle class guy, I chose a more traditional route that okay, get into civils, stayed there for 10 years, then joined because there was no money, got into private sector. Again, tug of war continued within oneself that okay, no, I'm meant to set up a school. So that's how the school came over. So the journey started in 1980. The seed was planted in 1986. And I saw every single root cause of every problem as bad education. If there is a riot, because people believe it's their duty to kill and get killed. If there is illiteracy, if there is dirt, if there is a lack of courage or conviction or anything, you can pinpoint to a poor education system. So at least that's my view, that if schools don't teach, because one, of course, the first school is the home, but then, if your parents are struggling to make ends meet in a poor country, the burden of this thing lies on the school. And schools also mostly, they do not discharge this obligation in the best possible.
Think what our belief system is and the experiences we've got make us who we are. And it starts in the school, and tell your experiences have. And why the word plenum? What is the story behind the name?
Yeah. So plenum, first good you ask me this. One, anyone who's listening, the plenum, if you see when you have these big events, Annurag, your Businessworld does such wonderful events. I was privileged, I've had the honor and the pleasure of attending so many of them. They're very well organized. Now, you see the last session, when the chief guest comes in, it's called the plenary. So plenum basically comes from that to pre-develop leadership. So my thing was, I want to set up a school where leadership is taught. Unfortunately, things like leadership are never taught. Is it possible? No. The journey is of course not complete. It just started. But my thing was, we should create a school which can teach children leadership. So plenum means leadership. So group of leaders basically comes from the assemblies, the election assembly. That's plenum also is, by the way, empty space between atoms and physics.
Beautiful. So it's metaphorical. Now let me ask you, at every level, the students are missing the campus, whether they are K-12, whether they are graduates, whether they are postgraduates. They're missing the campus life. They're missing going to the playground. And, while the parents and children are missing that, the teachers are missing talking to students face to face. So, there's a word being used, hybrid education. Do you think hybrid is here to stay, or we will be back to old world traditional style education soon?
No, there is a logic. There is definitely a place for a technology. It was always there, Some years ago, you started having this smart class. Although smart class was just a brand name of Educom's products. But frankly, technology has to be there. It has always been. For example, when we were growing up, our teachers used to write with chalk on a blackboard. Then blackboard became slightly better. Then, even the chalk and this thing disappeared. So there have been incremental changes in technology over the years. But now with Zoom, we are doing this in Zoom. So this part is true. Second, increasingly I see more uses of it. For example, in our school, if I can't find a teacher offline, if I can't find a teacher to place in the school, I will search the whole web to see, okay, where is a good teacher available? Maybe I will hire him or her through Zoom, he or she can teach that too. So hybrid models exist. E-books. Now today, most well-known schools, they've started doing away with physical libraries. Although I'm much too old, I prefer the photo in the background is of my library in the school. So I prefer books. I prefer to turn and feel a page. But a lot of us do Kindle, a lot of us do, so a lot of libraries will get shifted to technology. In Cambridge, for example, the whole idea about practicals. When we were growing up, not me and you gone to school where you used to do titration in a chemistry lab or physics. But today, lot of these practicals are happening via technology. So there is a lot of usage of technology and hybrids will go. But of course, I've always also believed, come what may, the person, the child, the teacher, the parent, you and I will always remain the center of our need. Nothing will take it away.
I can go on talking to you. Vasudha has an experience studying both in India and abroad. She's been doing this with me for many years. I'll ask you my last question and then bring in Vasudha for the rest of the conversation. What do you see are the changes that will happen in education, especially K-12 education, as we move forward? And is EduTech an ally or is it a frenemy? Is it an alternative or it is an add-on? And do you see EduTech companies and products bridging the digital divide or creating a digital divide?
They'll create a divide, no, for sure. So they will create a divide. Let's get this very clear. World Bank, there are reports after reports which said, just imagine, no, if every school is going through Google Meet or Zoom class, it assumes that the parent has a smartphone. It assumes that the household has a smartphone. Now, if you look at India, for example, now, out of the 130 odd crores, how many smartphones, how many families have smartphones? And especially if you're poor, using every child as a smartphone and assume again, if the mother is a working woman or if she is, or a parent is both parents are working women, working parents. Now, would they leave their would they go to work or put their smartphones to their children? And does every child, imagine you're a class 4 child, you're a class 3 child, you don't have access to a mobile phone, forget a smartphone. And should you be having access to this? So these are fundamental questions, and a lot of research that has happened over the past 2 years globally has shown that this is more of a fad and it has created more divide rather than solve something. It of course has solved a few problems that children who could afford to, children who were rich, they could afford to have the best smartphones and sit down in their rooms and houses. But imagine a normal household. If you're a teacher, there's a cooker which is glowing in the background, you're cooking food, your own children are crying, and you're supposed to teach. What if a teacher herself is living in a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom apartment? So you cannot dissociate yourself and start teaching. You're not a machine. So I think this digital business of only classroom-related digital business has created more divide and has serious problems. We've not understood maybe within coming years the psychological aspects of keeping children in one room or keeping them, housed together there. It might have serious repercussions.
And we are increasing their screen time, unfortunately.
Yes. So my sense is, but of course, technology has a role. Technology should be adopted, and it will be adopted whether we like it or not. But to what extent, I'm not too sure.
Thank you so much. I'll now bring in Vasudha Mukherjee and she'll take the rest of the conversation with you and ask you some real and very pertinent questions. I'm sure you'll be able to give us a perspective because you are in the play of creating something which is futuristic and hopefully will make a huge impact in the future. So Vasudha, you and Mr. Pankaj Sudan, all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Batra. Hi, Pankaj. Thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, you have such an interesting institution here, the Plenum School being an international boarding school. I want to ask you, you yourself mentioned that you went to a boarding school. Yes. What was your experience like? Or what was the experience there that inspired you to open this?
So, thank you. Thanks for asking this. See, I went to Motilal Nehru School of Sports. It is a premier school north of Delhi, 38 kilometers from Delhi, on Delhi-Chandigarh highway. But it was a sports school, essentially a sports school, although all boarding schools normally end up giving you a bit of this and a bit of that. So from the school, I picked up a love for sports. So I still play actively. And I picked up a love of reading because of my teacher. So those are the things I picked up from sports school. But I also saw how teachers, how elders could discriminate between rich and poor. I saw firsthand, so I have no hesitation that most of the adults They were not role models. They were not. I have to be very candid. They were mean. And just because my father or my mother, my parents were not senior officers, I saw discrimination. So, but the best thing about boarding school, I also saw. I made lifelong friends. Classmates are dear friends of mine. In this Plenum journey, there are a lot of people from the sports school, same school as me. They are not the richest people, but they understood instinctively what was I trying to achieve. So although I know people who are richer, who are better placed, or if you get older, you know a lot of people. But maximum number of people who supported this dream came from the same school.
I think you make a good point. Most adults are not necessarily role models. And you also spoke about this earlier where you mentioned that people don't enter the teaching field with the right intentions all the time. And luckily, we are seeing this change, and it is coming from your generation because you had experiences that you were happy with and you're trying to change that. Can you expand a little bit more on what exactly, when you are hiring teachers to your school, what are you looking for in that?
So when I hire teachers, I look for attitude. I'm very clear that attitude will trump aptitude every single time. If you have a love for teaching, if and only if you have a love for teaching, if and only if you have an open mind, okay? If and only if you are willing to subject yourself to a safe question that you are going to ask a teacher. For example, I demand that my teachers read up. Otherwise, it is counterproductive to be asking your students to read, whereas you don't know the joys of reading. So I look for the most soft stuff, which is the tough stuff. You need to be a good team player. I try to judge whether that person would be a good team player or is it just me all the time. So these are some of the things. Of course, I look for intellectual curiosity. I look for whether the person can teach well. I only ask a very, very few questions on teaching. By God's grace, I've been a decent student, so I can more or less ask about every subject. But frankly speaking, I look for those things which to my mind, matter the most. If you're going to be a role model in a boarding setup. Because in a boarding setup, you're there 24/7. Your children view you 24/7. And these are the things that count in life. A team player, an attitude, willingness to learn, curiosity, openness. These are things that matter to any organization. And these are things which I have learned when I've seen companies like GE, Philips, USM, ICICI Bank. So they told me what it takes to set up a good organization.
And do you think there's more pressure on teachers in a boarding school setup? Because you did mention, yes, the students are around for 24/7, but also other than being a teacher, you have to be a role model because there aren't any other role models around. You have to also be your parents sometimes.
You are there 24/7. So you could say, is it a pressure? Is it a joy? As we speak today, my own principal, the principal at Motilal Nehru School, sadly, he died. And I've been watching the social media, the kind of rock star messages people have sent. A normal teacher in a normal school cannot even read. If he or she dies, nobody would care. But I know when my principal died, the whole school, I'm sure all of us feel that a member of some part of us has died. I'm sure of this. Now, this is what the joys of residential school teaching. There is a challenge. Of course, 24/7 teachers are in there. You are expected to play with the children, you are expected to sing with them. But when is playing or singing become a drudgery? If you think it's adding pressure, you'll always be under pressure. You deserve to be under pressure. But my sense is, if you have chance to play Vasudha, how many of us go out and play it? You don't. Imagine if you're getting a chance to play half an hour every day, 1 hour every day. Imagine how much good it does your health. No, this is not pressure, but some people do. Some people say, oh no, we are so You give us so much work. Personally, I laugh it off, but frankly, but yes, overall, a teacher is more engaged. If you would use this word, they are more engaged in a normal school teacher.
I like that. I get what you mean by attitude now. It's essentially about how you perceive it. It's not pressure, it's a joy, it's an opportunity. And it's a lifestyle, right? Even for the teachers.
Imagine a holistic lifestyle. You wake up at 6 o'clock, you go out with the children, you breathe in that fresh air. These children, for the children, you are just, you are a parent, you are a friend, you are a colleague, you are a role model, you are a fashion model. Children start dressing. I remember, I can talk when I had hair. There was a time I had hair. Looking at me doesn't seem it, but there was a real time.
I believe you.
So, I really had hair, but curly, black kind of hair. I remember my teacher, when he came to school, he would not comb. And I was very impressed. And I thought, this is the best. So I stopped combing my hair. So, not that it matters much. But, children look up to teachers. They are very impressionable. So I'm sure our students in the school at Plenum would be looking up to their teachers, how their mannerism is, how their style is, how they, do whatever they do. I remember a lot. I must have copied a lot of things with my teachers. So in boarding schools especially, students do look up to their teachers and a variety of things.
Yeah, that's so true. But you also chose to have a Cambridge education. Can you tell us what made you decide to do that?
Okay. See, when I look at ordinary, slightly higher and middle class today, across the country, I look at civil services, every single civil servant and their children. The children mostly grown up. They're all abroad. Most of us, I know about Basra youth, most of us go, our children are abroad, or at least somebody of the other is abroad. Now, I assume that today challenges and opportunities are both global. How long do you want to be a frog in the water? You can assume that you will always be, but you're not. You're not in a village. You'll have to go to the nearest town, from town, the city, this whole world. To me, Nigeria, New York, New Delhi, New Zealand, it is all mine. I belong to this universe. This universe is mine. This whole earth is mine. Why should we be drawn into this board, that board? When my child or students, they have the whole opportunity of the whole world open before them. So the education system needs to prepare them. Secondly, even the challenges are, global. Today you have a petrol pump. Tomorrow you could have a global company putting out petrol pump right opposite your petrol pump. How do you do? How do you tackle that? Okay. So every single thing, every single sector of the economy is going to see increased global competition. People who will succeed will be ones who are well prepared. So I'm just preparing children for a tomorrow which will be more global, more open, more versatile. So I thought, when I looked at systems, I thought I must pick out a system which prepares our children for a tomorrow, which will be more global. So Cambridge is a global board. 160 countries is not a joke. They're taught in 160 and 70 countries. That wisdom, that experience of 160 countries is not easy to replicate. And whether we like it or not, I have seen that the Cambridge board or any international board, IB, which you study, well, they mean business. They really teach you that. It's not easy to get good scores there, but if you're there for learning, because education is meant for learning, not play. Anybody who learns well, I don't know what grades you got in IB, but you are in a decent job, You could have done the stupid CBSE and got 99.9% and still be doing the same.
I was more interested in my extracurriculars. Yeah.
Whatever, imagine. You'd be getting a 99, 100% in CBSE, ICSE, Ludhiana board and what board, and still be doing the same thing. So you enjoyed your life, you studied subjects that you wanted to study maybe, because Cambridge,
Absolutely.
they give you the opportunity to choose. And nobody is dying hungry. You are not dying hungry just because you studied. I'm very confident our children, parents who put their children in our school, their children are not going to die of hunger and malnutrition just because they will not find a job. They will definitely find great jobs, they will create great companies themselves. So why not? At least enjoy the whole process of those 5 years of studies. So when I looked at it, I said I must choose a board, educational pedagogy, which is very modern, which is really global in its scale. So I thought that's why I chose it.
I was also very lucky that my parents never really pressured us to, do engineering or doctorate. Like, it was never a thing. And you're right, having that exposure, going abroad, like I just knew that there were more options out there. And education was more about doing what you enjoyed and being good at what you wanted to do then.
Yeah.
But that being said, also in India, my teachers were always very supportive, knowing that I had come from abroad and didn't know what was going on. But yeah, there was definitely a push towards you need to know certain subjects more. But that came from a place of concern because they knew that, this is what you needed to succeed in India. That being said, I did have some trouble getting into university when I came back. Is that something that ever worries you? Maybe how, it's easier to get with this degree, maybe it's easier to apply abroad, but what if someone wants to stay back in India?
Yeah.
Was it something that you thought about back then when you started?
Couple of things. One, it is different. Cambridge is different, like Maggie. Maggie used to come out with that. It's different. It is different. Now, there will be some challenges when you get into Indian English. Some. However, since 1992, when I got into the journey, then I realized it's so old, not 30 odd years. Since 1992, most Indian universities, colleges, schools, they accept Cambridge qualifications. It is equal to a class 12 child. Now, if you want to get into, let's say, an IIT, a Cambridge student, our student who does A levels, would have to do the same thing what a class 12 pass from Hyderabad has done in CBS. Same thing. I'm yet to see any single child who doesn't take a study. Whether you are Tamil Nadu board, Odisha board, you are ICSC, CBSC, whatever board. Maybe that's part of the overall ecosystem, maybe it's part of insecurity. So I tell our children that you will also have to maybe take an extra class. Right? Secondly, some parts of your education, Cambridge, may not be as highly developed as CBSE, maybe in the competitive exam. But some parts would be more detailed. So it evens out. So for example, I know in engineering, I'm very clear. There's a thing called matrices. We don't teach matrices in Cambridge. That's a big chapter in CBSE. And some questions do appear in engineering. But so what? You will have 10 other things in physics, in chemistry, in mathematics that are more detailed in Cambridge, which are not detailed in CBSE or ICSE. So, you win some, you lose some kind of a thing. But the Indian university, they accept India wholeheartedly. And if you have to go abroad, then there's no question. Because foreign universities understand IB and Cambridge very well. They don't understand CBSE. They don't understand ICSE. They don't understand Nigeria board. They don't, and they don't trust it also. I'm very clear on this. They don't trust 100%. Everybody is getting 100%. An admissions officer sitting in New York has no clue that it's not possible to get 100%. But every half decent child passing out of CBSE or ICSE gets 100%. So it's not possible. And they're not dumb. Admissions abroad is not big. Admissions officers are not dumb. So,
yeah, it's a very complex system for sure. And there's certainly, like I said, it's not technically an issue. There are options available, but there's always going to be struggles, right? Going from school to university is always going to be difficult. Going from university into workforce is always going to be a transition. And that's something that we can only hope that one or the other will make up for and help students become working professionals, if that is the goal. Ravinder Budwar wants to know why Plenum has no school uniforms. And I didn't know that, so I'm also curious.
This is again, thank you for asking. Now, look at the word uniform. They're not uniform, they're all unique. We need to celebrate our uniqueness. What is this doing that to make everybody look alike? To my mind, when we were conceptualizing the school, the idea was that if this uniform business came about after the missionary schools came to India. So when they came to India, they started making a very uniform structure of a classroom. All classrooms, whether in Nagpur or Chennai or Delhi, they were arranged in a similar fashion, and which looked like a factory layout. Similarly, they arranged same children in similar so-called uniforms. Everybody will wear a pant, everybody will wear a white shirt, will wear a red tie, coat. Come on. Chennai is hot and humid. Nagpur to 50 degrees centigrade. Nagpur can do without a tie. It's a joke when you see people traveling, children, in suits and ties. It's good enough in England, it's great in New York, because it's cold. I wanted to celebrate the difference. So we said the Plenum School will celebrate the uniqueness of each child. It will celebrate the difference in each child. Right? Why have a uniform? Because we are not uniform, we are unique. Secondly, we had a big debate and we discussed internally whether this would exacerbate inequality. Right? Some children are rich, some are not so rich. We said, okay, let's tackle it head on. We don't give children the credit and the due regard that they deserve. You think children don't understand all this? My thing was we should expose our children and say, okay, if X's papa and mummy are rich, they're a product of what you call the lottery of the womb, so be it. They've done nothing. These children have done nothing. Their papa might be rich. This child is as poor or as rich as you are. This child can wear a fancy shoe maybe. But really, that means nothing in my life. That should mean nothing in our children or teachers. That child may not be able to run as fast as somebody who's running barefoot. And if there's an inequality in the system, we want to expose our children to that inequality and tell them it's okay. It is okay to be poor. It's okay if your parents don't earn much. That's okay. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Be proud that your children, your parents, even if they're not so well, they're trying to educate you in one of the finest schools. Why run away from difficult questions? Who and when, what is the age and stage in life to tackle difficult questions? If Abhimanyu, according to our scripture, can know the toughest details of a chakravarti, wherein his mother's womb, here I can't even tell a class 7 child that, okay, this is the inequality that exists in this world. It's not, go ahead and do something when you grow up. That's my view. And that's why I said, okay, we'll not have a uniform. We'll celebrate color. We'll celebrate difference. We'll celebrate the uniqueness of each child, unique background of each child. That's okay. It is absolutely okay to be, rich or poor or middle class or whatever. It's absolutely poor. It's absolutely fine. It is not bad. It is not wrong. It is not ill. So that is why, there was a philosophical thing that we need to celebrate uniqueness and unique backgrounds. And there was this, emotional thing that there is so much of color in this life. When children come to our school, they wear whatever clothes they have and look so nice. Adds color to the school. So that is why.
Thank you. Actually, it's really interesting you answered that because, in school time, that used to be every time they were teachers debating, that was the one topic that would always come up, right? Uniform versus no uniforms. And I think you just laid that entire debate. That being said, I do want to ask you, do you still have some kind of a dress code? To do you believe that there should be something like some parameters within which students should decide what they dress, or is it like wear whatever you like?
Frankly, we have none. Why should we have? I know, normal assumption is somebody walks in a swimsuit in a class. Right? It doesn't happen like this. When you give people freedom, I have seen in life people behave with more responsibility. And frankly, I'm telling you, it comes out of a fear of adults, our own fears. Children are smarter, they are more responsible, provided they are taught with love and respect. Well, listen, okay, please, your future is in your own hands. We shall do whatever it takes to make you look good. We'll do whatever it is. The school, the Plenum, is founded on that philosophy that each one of our children is precious to us. And I'm sure, sometimes somebody will be weird, maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen in 2 years, somebody will be really weird with their dress. I don't know, I haven't seen it. But if that day comes, I don't know what we do, but I doubt very much that I will see somebody walking around exactly with this. No, they won't come. They won't come.
I mean, if they do, there's bigger problems going on then. Probably what they're wearing. If they do come in that kind of an outfit, there's probably something bigger going on than what they're wearing, right?
Yeah, there's so much bigger things to talk about. I'm more worried about the bigger stuff. How you feeling? Are you reading enough? Rather than focus my energies on, okay, whether you wear shoes or sandals to school. Right? Maybe our teachers tell them not to wear slippers. I don't know. I have never told them. If they want to wear slippers to school, it's fine with me. But if my teachers tell them, it's fine with me also. But I worry more about whether this child is learning. That is what I'm there for. We are not here to police people to wear black shoes or white shoes or this shoes or red shoes. They will try to wear red shoes. I don't know whether he's listening. So, I like it. Fine. I would never wear red shoes. For the life of me, I would never wear red shoes. But if somebody wants to wear red shoes, it should be okay with us. What is not okay with us is any child in our custody. Is he or she learning or not? Are we teaching him what the promise we made to ourselves and to the parents? That is more of a worry. I worry about that. I don't worry about what they are doing or not.
I think a lot of students watching this are going to be very happy to hear that. And I can imagine them going back to their teachers and saying, Pankaj Sudan said so and so, you should listen to him, you should go watch this.
What do you mean? I have problems for my teachers.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're creating problems at all. I didn't have uniforms in my school. We did have some dress code, that your skirt and shorts had to be a certain length, but other than that, there wasn't. And nobody ever showed up in, you said, nobody ever showed up.
Yeah, similar. This uniform nonsense is only so colonial. See, you studied abroad. Well, any decent school globally that I've been to, they don't have a uniform. The uniform was such a wonderful thing. They should have it in colleges also. They should have it in universities also. They should have it in the Indian Parliament also. They should have it in every office also. What nonsense.
I think I only went to one school where they didn't have uniforms, and I was already in high school. And it was so nerve-wracking because I'd always worn uniforms my entire life. And I was very nervous, what do people wear normally? Because we only had, kharka, the clothes that you wear at night, and you have uniforms, and then things you wear at parties. There was no everyday clothes.
Yeah. So basically, you need to think about learning.
Yeah.
Right? When you think about, is the child happy? Are we treating him or her well?
Sure.
That
is such a big topic in itself. We could have a whole panel just talking about uniforms and rules and dress codes. Thank you, Ravinder, for bringing that up. He has another question. He's asking, what does Plenum do so that students don't get bored since you're in the same environment for 24/7?
See, one, children are naughty. They don't want to do anything. Children actually find their own solution. They don't get bored. This is what boring.
I would also like to add that, I don't think home is necessarily more interesting than school. It's not.
Yeah, so if you have 5, 7, 10, 15, 100 people of your own age group around you, do you think you would ever get bored? Boarding schools are so much fun. I used to see, stupid little things, they become a matter of great debate, become a matter of great joy. If somebody's socks are stinking, that becomes a matter of debate for the whole school. All the children in the school can spend their entire day debating this. Right? If somebody is not, these kind of small children don't really get bored so easily. But even otherwise, we have lots of activities. So when we conceptualized the school, we thought we should be the most fun school. Everybody wants to be seen like a dumb, boring prison. I said we should have a most happening, cool school. So we have a lot of parties by the way. So, my request to our teachers is takes more time, but every week we should have a party. Every week. Let the children jump around, let them dance, let them be happy, let them sing. That is one. Second, we have all sorts of it. We have sports throughout the day, at least 2 hours every day. If you're playing for 2 hours, you have a chance to get bored. We have a dedicated reading hour where you have to read a novel, not your textbook. If you're reading every day, if you're playing for 2 hours every day, if you have a party at least once a week, if at least once a week you're out trekking, if once a week or something, you have a debate or something, or some visitor coming talking to you, you think there's a chance to get bored. We don't have TV, we don't have television in this school. We don't have a single TV. None of our teachers have ever asked one. We don't have a single television in the school. But that's okay, our children are not getting bored, I think. And the access to information through tablets, through devices, through computers, we have. So children really don't get bored with all these activities. So you have to find out activities which they are happy with. So soon we'll start music, we'll start art, they are painting. So children are happy with that.
Right. I also want to ask you, you opened this school with a very particular vision, and you kind of talked about that. How do you see this grow? Do you have a plan to maybe open up more schools around the country, maybe admit more students in the one you already have? What is the plan?
Yeah, so इसमें ना हिंदी में बोलते हैं मसला आपके मुंह में नहीं जाता है. So no, the dream is this. The dream was never to open a school. The vision and the dream is to make a change. Our group, WhatsApp group, the society and the members, and people who are with me in this journey, our dream is be the change. Comes from Mahatma Gandhi's be the change that you want to make. So the idea is the change will happen by having lots of schools across the country and maybe hopefully abroad. So
you talked about sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that the Plenum brand, the Plenum School will grow into a chain of the Plenum School. We'll open schools all over. My vision today, or when we talk in our governing body and the AGMs and the members, is today we think we should have schools in only beautiful, far-off locations. Right? Hills, mountains, deserts, seaside. So, but I don't know what comes tomorrow because business exigencies are also important. And if we feel the need that, okay, we should move closer to cities also because there's so much to do. There is so much to do, add value to life before we hang up our heads. So, one, the Plenum School, as we visualize today, will be a lot of Plenum schools spread all over the country and also abroad. We will go there. So that is one. Secondly, as of now, we think we should only be in fancy, nice, cute, far off locations. But maybe we'll later on move closer to cities, we'll manage certain schools. You know, if some school is not doing well, we'll take over those schools and manage them. So the Plenum brand will do all this. And also maybe we'll go into that. So, since you asked, with more schools after the next, we should try that.
Right. So we can expect a lot from Plenum School. That's very exciting.
It is.
I also want to ask you, you mentioned, about leadership being so key to your education. Do you think maybe I should ask, how do you go about that? How do you ensure that this leadership skill is put into students?
First, what is leadership? Leadership is not this alpha male, always charged up and everybody follow me. No, it's not. To me.
I hope not. We don't need that.
Of course, for me, leadership is mostly doing that. But sometimes being on the sidelines, just clapping. Sometimes in the back, you say, okay, you go ahead, I know nothing. You guys take charge. Sometimes walking with the team right in the middle, say, okay, I'm there with you. So all sorts of things. Now, how I teach leadership in school, how the Plenum School should be doing this or is doing it or is trying to do this is that we are very, very conscious, all of us in the management team of the Plenum School are very, very conscious that we are not there. Our real spokespeople or whatever we think of are my teachers. And there's no chance in hell. If I think I am this know-all, be-all, I'm not. I'm definitely not. I'm very clear. And neither is any one of the society. We are all highly accomplished. No other school in the whole world can ever even come close to what we are as a group. We are highly accomplished. But we are humble enough to realize, or we are sensible enough to realize that the real leadership will be developed by our teachers. So I do the next best thing. Me and the whole management team, we work with the teachers. If I've created leaders out of my teachers, the teachers would develop leaders out of the students.
Absolutely. And the NAP policy, the new national education policy is also talking so much about bringing in soft skills and skill development. And the education landscape has changed so much over the last few years, and it's changing so much now. Maybe due to the pandemic, maybe due to digitalization, whatever it may be. How has the education landscape changed for you at your school? Has it changed, or because it seems like you were pretty forward thinking to begin with?
I mentioned you around this one. I'm not a big fan of fancy documents. I'm not. So, I didn't see anything new in the new education policy, frankly. It's the word new, but what's new? 90%. See, I find it very strange. I find it extremely strange on the part of private school, owners, people who run private universities. I'm shocked as to why so diffidence. Why? Great. What is new in new education? Nothing. There's nothing new in the new education. There's nothing. It's all. I can't use words which I feel. But please understand.
It's common sense.
So you'll see 90% of middle class India, they send their children to private schools. And I challenge anybody, pick up that new education policy, has zero inputs on it. See, if you want to do something on government schools, if I want to do something to in my room, I don't need your permission. I don't need your document. If government wants to improve the government schools framework, let them do it. There's no policy. Let them not even put out a policy. There's nothing to say, okay, who opens a damn school?
Yeah.
It is just a business. HDFC opens a school. Why should a bank open a school? Why should a business family open a school? Why should a smuggler open a school? Show me one example of a really educated, ordinary, poor man opening a school. Somebody who wants to open a school. There's nobody. It's such a shame. I would consider those policies as new education policy and say, the hell with it, the good guys will open a school. And this is a good guy. I am yet to see a very wonderful, talented, smart ass going ahead and opening a school. No, I'm not. Give me one example. Nobody has opened a university in this country. Nobody has opened a school in this country. None. None. You check the backgrounds of every single person who's opening the school. What are they? The new education policy does nothing to set this. But okay, if a Pankaj Sudan like a madman wants to come and set up a school, here is this land free of cost. Free of cost. Why are we so bloody scared? I'm not going to pick up this land and run away. They say, okay, here is this 50 crores, Pankaj will lay up the school banana. I mean, where will a decent, honest guy get a land, get money, get this, get teachers? Nothing. The new education policy is a lot of paperwork. Hot gas for what? Kiss cheese, what for? What is new in new? Nothing. We should have vocational education. Great, we should have vocational education. Why not? So what? Will your IIM exam, will this exam, get the toppers who top IITs or AIMS exam. Tell them write a statement of purpose the way Harvard does or this university. All of them will fail. We make such, diffident children out of the so-called toppers, 100%. This is what new education or old education or the older education or the oldest education policy. To my mind, all these policies, but for everybody's children, your children, my children, every officer's children in this country, every bureaucrat, politician, this, that, richer person, his child or her child is going to a private school. And new education doesn't even think about birthright. It is people who set up a school, they should be writing a policy. No bureaucrat should be involved, no politician should be involved. But who writes? Somebody who's never set up a school, somebody who doesn't know it takes cards, who doesn't know how to buy a bus, who doesn't know what do you do with parents who don't pay fees? If you've never even set up a school, why are you writing a policy? Who the hell are you to write a policy? You will call it a newest. Will it be new? It won't be. It's a pack of self-defeating purpose. It's a nice document. You can read it and know nothing about what's in it. If you read
it, and it definitely puts the onus on the schools to sort of either.
Just think. It says new education policy. I don't know, 60 odd aims. 60. You need to have one aim, only one aim in life. That's enough. If I have 60 aims guiding my own life, I'll go mad. You can't have the Indian new education policy is rooted in 5,000 years of Indian history. Come on, then what's new? That's the line it starts with. New education policies, foundational principles start with this line. If I love my parents, I don't have to jump out every day, every morning to tell them I love you. I love them, they know it. I also know they know. So if my whole purpose, the Plenum School, is also rooted in Indian culture, I don't have to jump around. No, we'll root it. I want to root it in a global culture and the civilizational bonds of humanity. See, new education policy, the first line says the foundational principles of new are Indian culture, ethos, values. I'm yet to see anybody define what is Indian culture and values.
Yeah, it's a very ambiguous sort of.
Is it Mizoram? Okay. Is Indian ethos Mizoram ethos? Or Tamil Nadu ethos? Or Andhra? Or scheduled caste? Or Muslims? Or Hindus? Whose ethos is this? What is Indian ethos? Nobody can define it. If you can't define it, what do you expect people to follow?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody can define, is it Andhra, Indian thought?
And then you can also just do whatever you want and say, well, I'm doing this Indian cultural thing. It's like, okay, I guess.
We're talking about 10 years, we'll do something more newer and we'll remain the same. But this is not.
Definitely a very interesting take on that. I haven't heard that response before. I have to change the subject a little bit because Sundekha Sharma has asked a question, and actually I think it's a question coming from people like me who are day scholars who've never been to boarding school and just terrified by the notion of boarding schools. She's asking, how does a regular day at Plenum School look like for students as well as teachers? And I also want to additionally ask you, those of us who are like always like boarding schools and think of it as some weird sort of institution, what would you say to them about what life is really like?
No. What's life like in a boarding school?
Yes. They want to know what is a day like. A day is like. And I want to additionally ask,
Okay,
what are we getting wrong?
Quick, I'll do a recap of the day, a typical day at the Plenum School. Children wake up at 6, get ready, go for morning PT. They go for a jog, minor this thing in the hills because we are set up in the hills. So after that, they come back, we play loud music, pop music. Some Kishore Kumar, some whatever latest song is running, and the children have a bath. And they sing in their own dirty voices, we encourage them. They get ready, at 8 o'clock they come to the academic block and they start this reading session, which I mentioned briefly. I take reading very seriously. You should read a book, which is not a textbook. No homework, no nothing. For 1 hour they read. It's called DEAR, D-E-A-R, drop everything and read. Children read a novel or a book, whatever they like. Okay? And they are monitored. 9 o'clock breakfast, 9:30 classes start, till 1:30 there are classes, 11 o'clock there's a milk break, children have milk and some snacks, 1:30 lunch, then I think around 75 minutes rest. During that rest hour, they wash their small clothes like socks, hankies, etc. We want to teach them that these skills are important. This is important, you need to clean up your stuff, smaller stuff. Then they come back. Children who missed homework or missed the school or something, we do remedial classes for them. Teacher teaches them, or they do homework, self-study for around 1 hour. Then they go out and play for 1.5 hours. Then, they come back cursing me, cursing their parents, cursing everybody because they do solid magla, physical solid. And then, between the smiles and the tears, they have milk again. So after milk, they go back to their dorms. They get ready, they have a bath, they come back, they sit up on a hillock or a rooftop. We do what is called a starter, which we borrowed heavily from Rishi Valley School, which is one of the finest schools in the country, or India School in Valley. So a starter is, you look at the setting sun, close your eyes, think it. What new educational foundational Indian ethos. I think Indian ethos was going with them. So I'm trying to propagate in the school by saying, okay, this 15 minutes, go with them. So they do that, they come out of this and then they go to the classes, again 1.5 hours, they study, homework and whatever they have to do. 7:30 dinner. After dinner, children and teachers, they pick up some topic of the day, they discuss. So that, since we don't have TV and no TV time, our children shouldn't be left out as if the children are coming out of the jungle or nothing. So our teachers and students spend some time discussing some current affairs things. And for 1 hour from 9 to 10, children are left to themselves to do all mischief they want to do in the hostel. And joke, laugh, cry, whatever they want to do. 10 o'clock they sleep. That was something that needs to be. So this is a normal thing.
We have actually gone over our time limits, but there's so much more I wanted to ask you. But just as one final question, just to kind of wrap this up, I want to ask you, what is something you would like to tell us? That's what I was asking also for people like me who have never gone to boarding school, who are maybe terrified of the concept of boarding school. What is your message to us?
You miss something. You really miss something. But then,
we missed something, yes.
So
I think we did.
So Vasudha would say, I'm a true boarder. I've studied in a boarding school. I have two sons, and they were in one of the best schools in Delhi, which is Sanskriti school, which a parent gives the left hand and the right hand to get them admitted to. But we took them out and sent them to a boarding school. So I'm a true blue boarder, true blue. So I can't think of an educational life without a boarding school. I think it's incomplete. So, but still, Vasudha, you and anyone listening and anyone who wants to, you're always welcome to the Plenum School. Come live with us, stay there. The way Amitabh Bachchan says, "Do din to guzariye Gujarat mein." I say, come do din to guzariye Plenum School mein. You would love it. You would get richer by the experience, and of course, our children will also love to have you there. Our teachers will enjoy, interacting, knowing what is journalism, what is their world. But for people who want to, you're always welcome. Yeah. So, but I must say, you missed something. But
I will add one small thing. My mother went to a boarding school in India, and I've lived abroad, and I still feel like she has so many more experiences in her boarding school life than I ever will. Like, she learned to fly a plane, she learned shooting, she learned horse riding. I never did any of those things. So, someone has said, Kiran, one of the panelists says, strongly recommend boarding schooling. Thank you, Kiran, for your comments.
Yeah, right, Kiran. Yeah.
All right, on that note, thank you so much, Pankaj, for joining us today on Wednesday Wisdom. It was a pleasure to have you. This was so eye-opening. It's so rare to have someone who can impart so much unique knowledge and bring in unique perspectives on current events to our platforms. This is exactly what Wednesday Wisdom was about, and which is what I enjoy about Wednesday Wisdom. And thank you to the audience for participating and for asking questions, and for also bringing up questions that I wanted to ask, but I wasn't sure if it was right as a journalist to bring up. Kiran, again, yes, everyone in the chat box is actually talking to each other. They are definitely pro boarding schools. And thank you for also kind of like breaking a little bit of the stereotypes that we have, or that we have about boarding schools. I mean, I think you know what I'm talking about. It was a pleasure having you. Yeah, we do this every Wednesday. We have a new speaker every Wednesday from 4:30 onwards. You can actually go back and watch this entire thing on YouTube, on PW Education, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and we'll be back again next week, same time, same place. Thank you, and good evening.
Thanks all. Thank you.